Welcome to Oddball. I'm Charlotte Wilder. Amin couldn't be here today, but that's okay because we have an interview that he did with longtime sportswriter and commentator JJ Adande at Summer League. JJ is going to be honored at this year's NBA Hall of Fame ceremony for winning the 2024 Curt Gowdy Print Media Award. Check it out.
I'm joined by, I get to say this, man, for the first time, the Hall of Famer.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
JJ Adande. JJ, okay, so how did you find out that you were going to get the Curt Gowdy Award?
I found out that I was in the running for it. I got an email from a person I've been in contact with at the Hall of Fame who asked me for my my phone number in case the CEO of the Hall of Fame wanted to call with some good news.
Right.
So I thought it was leaning, but it didn't mean for sure, right? And then I didn't get a phone call.
Right.
And so I flew down to Florida had a vacation plan for All-Star Weekend. And I landed and my phone blowing up because it's all over social media that I got the Curt Gowdy Award. And I'm like, man, they didn't call. And I looked and he had called, but it was a really busy day and it had gone straight to voicemail. I was teaching when he called and I had my phone off and it was on my voicemail.
Oh, wow. So I'm assuming you still have that voicemail.
I saved it. Kind of the good thing about not receiving the call is I'll always have that voicemail.
Right. Do you have it memorized, like what he said? I feel like I would have listened to it 100 times.
It's just the tone, you know, it's awesome. I got to actually make sure I archive it so it doesn't get erased accidentally.
What's that like? What does that mean to you, to hear that you are now going to be enshrined in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame?
It's validation and recognition for all the work, payoff. It just means that it was all worth it. And more importantly, it was worth it to do it my way.
Right.
You know, sometimes you question like, well, I know there's paths to more fame or acclaim or greater followers, all that stuff, but that wouldn't be authentic to me.
Right.
And the fact that I could stay true to myself and still get a recognition like this, it makes it even more valuable.
You know, a lot of times when I ask players, when they announce that they're going to be in the Hall of Fame, I ask them, like, did you ever think this could happen? They said, you want to go out there and you want to play basketball, and I want to play basketball well, and I want to win championships, and I want to be known and respected by my peers. And, like, you never think of Hall of Fame. I remember talking to Tracy McGrady, because Rachel used to always introduce him, Rachel Nichols used to introduce him as future Hall of Famer, and he was like, no, I'm not a Hall of Famer. And so when it finally we found out that he was going to be going in, his wife throws him this huge surprise party. He didn't know.
Wow.
Said, but Tracy,
did he miss the phone call too?
No, it was like Tracy. She brought you to a hotel in downtown Houston, and he said she told me we're going to a Lauryn Hill concert. It was like the most innocent, pure kind of. Yeah, you never expected it. Did you ever expect it?
So for me, it didn't exist, right? So this award, the Curt Gowdy Print Media Award, has only been bestowed since like the early 1990s.
Yes.
So when I thought of what I wanted to get out of my career, and I did get to achieve those dreams. I did dream of having a column at the LA Times.
Right.
And so that came true. I didn't dream of the Hall of Fame. That wasn't a dream to have.
Right.
And then as it started to seem like a possibility, you know, you start to see your peers go in, like Mark Spears, you know, who I've worked with, and I saw come all the way up and elevate to that high level. And a few years ago, they asked me for a bio, and I said, for what? And they said, you know, Curt Gowdy Award. I mean, what's that got to do? Like, you're a nominee. You're like a finalist. And so I said, okay. So at that point, it did become a possibility. And so I sent the bio in. I didn't get it that year, and I really didn't think that much about it again. And then when I got that email this year, and so like I stopped for a moment. It's funny. I was having like a really hectic, crazy day. I was packing to come out here to Vegas for the Super Bowl the next day for a week, and like a lot was going on. And I allowed myself to lay on the bed and just envision like it could happen. Because now it was something that really could happen. Yeah. And so I don't like to get caught up in, is worrying, is it going to happen? Yeah. I didn't obsess about it, but I just stopped for a moment and thought about it. And then after that, I had, you know, like a dozen kids out here for the Super Bowl. So I just didn't think about it that much again.
Who was the first person you either called or replied to a text or whatever, the first person you talked to about winning this?
God, it was so chaotic because I was on a plane when it got out. So when I landed, it was just a deluge. Yeah. So I can't even remember. I do remember the first person that I got a notice of. So he had mentioned me in social media and congratulated me. good friend of mine, Eric Aldridge, who I've known for over a quarter century. But I really remember like on the drive, so I flew to Indianapolis and I drove back to Chicago. And on that drive back, I was really calling people.
Yeah.
And like one of the first people I thought of and I wanted to talk to was my 9th grade English teacher.
Wow.
Who was the one that got me really started. And I called, Rick Jaffe, who was the guy that gave me my first job at Chicago Sun-Times and then brought me to the LA Times. So I really thought about all the people that had a hand that really, really weren't just along for the ride, but that just really played critical roles, right? I called John Black, who was the PR guy for the Lakers, who for a long time, who I probably saw more days in more years than anyone else in my adult life.
Right.
Once I left home, like I was from like 97 to, 2016, I saw him the majority of days of the year. So like but he helped me do my job.
Right.
Like you think of all the people that help you do this. All the athletes that took time to talk to you, the coaches, the scouts that helped inform you, the general managers that inform you, the age, like you think of everyone that was involved in it, and it's so collective, and you don't have time to talk to them all. But
oftentimes when players go in the Hall of Fame, you get a little highlight reel package, kind of the most memorable moments of their career, of a Hall of Fame career. What are the most memorable moments of your Hall of Fame career?
Wow, the thing is like. Most of them can't be, especially for a print award. Like I'm sure in the video, the NBA is putting together a video for the presentation, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of my TV stuff because it's on video.
Right.
It's
what about for
moments.
you? Just let's forget about a highlight reel that can be made by someone.
Right.
For you, in your head, your highlight reel. What are those memorable moments?
Man, a lot involved Magic Johnson because he was my inspiration, and then getting to cover him. And then getting to know him. And so I think of like, I was an intern at the Washington Post and he had a Pepsi distributor, like the whole business empire that he has now, this like $1 billion business empire. It started with, he was a co-owner of a Pepsi distributorship outside of DC. So he wanted to really raise his profile there. So he came to DC that summer and did a charity basketball game. And at one point I wound up like, riding in the limo with him out to the Pepsi plant as he was going to tour a Pepsi plant. I was working on a story and riding in the back of the limo, and that felt like I'd come a long way. I'm like
LA
20
kid,
years at it, 20 years old at the time, and I'm at the Washington Post interning, and I'm riding in the limo with Magic Johnson.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, all right, so the speech, have you written it yet?
I've jotted down all the talking points. Like I keep adding more. So, they postponed it from August. Now the induction is going to be in October. So I'm worried that it's like padding my thing. I'm going to try to adhere to the time limit, but the last conversation I had with Bill Walton, he says, "J.A., take as much time as you want. This is your moment. Don't let them shorten you." So then when he passed away, I was thinking, wow, that's the last time I talked to Bill. I kind of have to pay homage to Bill. I might have to go 20 minutes because he would have wanted it that way.
I've told you this before, I'm going to say it on camera. Hearing you go, and I said the same thing to Mark Spears 2 years ago, I feel like I'm going to the Hall of Fame.
And you should, because I feel like we're all going in. It's interesting. I saw Richard Hamilton here the other night in Vegas, and I said, "Are you going for Chauncey?" And the Pistons, he said, "Oh, man, we've been all in the group chat." And I'm like, because it's like you're all going in, right? Like that Pistons team is going in with Chauncey. And I feel like that way, like I'm bringing so many people in with me. Because we got to do it our way. We got to have fun at ESPN together, and like, I know your show's Oddball. Like I feel like I'm an oddball in a lot of ways. Like I wasn't like ordained to get something like this. Like I've lived in 2 basements growing up. Like I know your story, and your audience is familiar with your story, how far you've come. And so, again, to be able to do it the way that you wanted to do it, in a way that felt authentic to yourself, and, hearing you, like, you called me and we ran into each other, and, like, you were so genuinely happy for me. Like, I feel like a lot of people are happier for me. Like, Rachel Nichols, I remember calling her that weekend, and, like, she was one of the first people I called, and, like, she seemed more excited than I was. Because you kind of can't, when it's happening to you, you kind of still bewildered. I'm still a little stunned, but, like, the happiness that so many people feel, the pride that so many people feel, as they should feel like the contribution that they made to this, the role that they played in this, So it's such a shared thing. That's what's so cool about it.
I played no role other than being your friend. That's it. Like,
but like, what would it be if I didn't have friends?
Yeah.
You know, like if I'm all by myself, it's nothing.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to, that's the best thing, is to be able to share it with friends, to be able to have these conversations, and just people so happy for you. And like, you know, I was with my guy Steve Schembaum last night, who's known me since right when we set foot on our first day at Northwestern. And he knows all the ups and the downs, and like we've come so far together. He's been very successful in his career. Like just that feeling I had of like the happiness that he felt from me. Like, I mean, that's, the ring is cool, but like stuff like that is just so cool.
I can't wait for that night in October. I know I'm going to be there. A lot of people you mentioned that have been along for the ride.
Crew's going to be there.
We're all going to be there, man.
That's
and
so
we're again so happy for you. All right, you mentioned you being an oddball. I'm glad that you did.
Speaking of oddball.
Yeah, we've got an oddball questionnaire. We're looking for the biggest oddball in Summer League. So, got some questions for you. Let's start with, when you put on your shoes and socks, do you go sock, sock, shoe, shoe, or do you go sock, shoe,
sock, shoe, shoe?
What foot do you start with?
Kind of depends. Because now that the socks have the labels, it's kind of whichever one. Like, do you adhere to the labels?
I'm anti-socks that tell me which sock they are. Look, hey, you know what? I tell you what sock you are.
I feel like it shouldn't matter, but like I've always been like I stay inside the lines. You know, I don't color outside the lines. So like my left. So it's kind of whichever one I have first. If it has an L on it, then I put the left song on. Otherwise, I put the right song.
All right. What was your most recent encounter with a ghost or alien?
I don't believe in either of those things.
If you could only communicate using movie quotes, which movie would you choose?
Do Good Men. That's the one I quote the most.
Give me your best Few Good Men quote. Right in the camera.
Now you got me on pressure. We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use them as the backbone of a lifetime spent defending something. You use them as the punchline at the party. I could go on. You get the gist.
That's a great delivery. Right. If you had your own sitcom about your life, what would your sitcom catchphrase be?
Hey, Charlie. So I used to joke with my friends, like it would just be the most random name for a sitcom, like, hey, Charlie. So that'd be my sitcom. It's got nothing to do with anything.
I think he's winning this. Hold on, man. Well, Stephanie Snowden was the clubhouse leader. But you might be given a run for money. Depends on these last two questions you got. If you could have any song play every time you enter a room, what song would it be?
So I've always thought about what my walkout song would be, for like if I was a relief pitcher.
Right.
The Rockweiler, Redman. It's got like a good, because it's got that lead in a little bit, then dun.
That's true. Like I think that is the best kind of.
You like a little bit of a build-up.
You want people to hear something that's like, it's on its way, right? Kind of like you're on your way, right? The music is there to let people know that you're on the way, but like the intro to the song is there to let you know the song's on the way.
Get you hyped up before like the really kicks in.
Kind of like Juvenile back that ass up. We hear that doom, doom, doom. Like, oh, you know what's about to come.
You know what we were talking about today was like the Top Gun anthem. And like, you know, so you're familiar with the first one. And Top Gun Maverick came on, like that first gong. I was like, I'm in. Yeah. When I saw the movie, as soon as I heard that first gong, I'm like, I'm in. I'm into this movie, like 4 stars.
I watched it during the finals, and I want to say I was in San Francisco.
So good.
I was like, you know what?
Good. It's so good.
It was Top Gun. It was Top Gun.
They hit all the right notes.
All right, last question. What are your thoughts on the French?
J'aime beaucoup les Français.
This guy, man of many talents. Hall of Famer JJ Adande, thanks a lot for joining us.
My pleasure, man. Thank you. See you in Springfield.
Welcome back to Oddball. We have a great interview with Coach Fran Fraschilla because JJ Redick coached his first NBA game over the weekend. Let's check out Fran's advice for this first-time head coach. Coach, I loved your thread about advice for JJ Redick taking over the Los Angeles Lakers. And I also love that you said, you know, this is really for young coaches coming into the league. You were like, this is a great excuse to give this advice. There was one thing that you said that I didn't fully understand, but I was fascinated by it. This also seems like a great way to live your life if you're someone who manages people. But you said make high pressure decisions in the off season in the low pressure moments? Are you referring to like high pressure in game situations and what plays you're going to run?
Everything.
Everything, what else is? Yeah.
No, it's a great question. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I learned this from Jeff Adande. You know, I was with the Knicks in 98, 99. There was a strike that went a long time, as Amin remembers, till January. And I would go into the office every day. I lived in Westchester, and I was in between coaching jobs in college. And Jeff and Tibbs and Brendan, the great late Brendan Malone and Don Chaney, we would go to the office every day in August and September, and then it became October, November, waiting for the strike to end. And it really hit me that we would go over scenarios that were going to take place. And by the way, it's not just in a strike year. It's every season things happen in the NBA and in college that are crazy that you have to prepare for long before it happens in February on a random Tuesday night in Portland with 3 seconds to go.
Right.
And taking the ball on an out of bounds play. Okay. And I don't know if you remember, Amin, a couple of years ago, and it was Jay Triano was the coach. They threw the ball inbounds from out of bounds at the rim.
Yeah.
And remember that?
The Suns in Memphis, I want to say.
I know it was the Suns.
Right.
And remember, and nobody knew the rule.
Right.
And you can actually, I don't know if they've changed it, but in the NBA, you can catch it over the rim. If you're the offensive player, catch it late in, and it's not goaltending.
Right.
And so to that point, Charlotte, there are so many things that a coach should be thinking about in the off season. And it's not just late game situations. It's all the pressure situations of the season. And you get those out of the way in the non-pressure time of the off season with your staff. I was always big on a little 3-day retreat in the off season with my staff to go over everything that could happen. And I'll give you another example. Chuck Daly, when he coached the Pistons. Now, he was a great coach. He always said he had selective hearing. And by that, he meant that he didn't always want to hear what the players were saying about him. And he let it go in one ear and out the other, right? It's very smart, as you know, in the league, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
But he also had a rule. He had a rule that he adhered to. He said, hey, we have a rule when we lose, okay? You do what you want when we win. You want to put the music on, joke around, you want to play cards on the bus, you do your thing. When we lose, no music, and you just get on the bus and you don't basically say squat.
Right.
And what I'm saying is a coach has to have some things already laid out when there's no pressure.
Right.
And it's kind of what I meant. And it's true for life, too.
Yeah.
If you're running a business, you're going to hit adversity and there's going to be pressure situations. And the more you can deal with those in a non-pressure time of the offseason, the better you're going to be. And I learned that from Coach Van Gundy, quite honestly. And I always carried that with me. And I would say this, too. Nobody wants to play for a coach who's unprepared. Nobody.
Yep.
And in the NBA, as Amin knows well, the guys that play 5 or more years are oftentimes smarter than an assistant coach coming into the league for the first time from college. They know way more about the NBA. And so when you got to know your stuff and you got to know it when the pressure's on.
Right.
I love that.
Coach, I want to ask you, a pitfall that I see a lot of young coaches fall into is they feel like they've got to do it all. They don't rely enough on their staff. They feel like they have to prove to everybody, I know what I'm doing here. What's the perfect balance for an incoming head coach to have that credibility with his locker room, but also not try to do it all on his own?
It's a great question. It is a great question. It's an art form. And I'll give you an example. I was a very intense young coach, okay, especially at practice. But we got to the midseason, and this is true for, first of all, let me say this. The more you can give your assistant coaches ownership of the program, the better. Like I learned this a long time ago. A's hire A's, B's hire C's.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
See that? And you can't be insecure when you hire somebody that's as smart as you, if not smarter. Think about Larry Bird when he coached the Pacers.
Right.
Who was his defense coordinator? Dick Harder.
Rick Carlisle on offense.
Exactly. Say no more, right?
Yeah.
All right. So on a random game when I was coaching, and let's say we were midway through our season, and we were getting ready to walk through an inbounds play the morning of the game. we've probably guarded that play 3 different ways already during the season, and they all work. And I would say to my team, all right, guys, what do you want to do here? You want to switch it? You want to stay? Or we can pre-switch it before the ball comes in bounds. What do you guys think? And I would turn the ownership of that play to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew all 3 would work, but one way would work better if they took ownership of it.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so they would talk and they'd say, Coach, let's not switch this. We'll fight through it. All right, we good with that? Everybody good? We're fighting through the screen here. Everybody good? All right. So now I gave them ownership. And I think that's where the balance is. There's certain things that were non-negotiables. And for example, I did the first 20 minutes of practice every single day of my head coaching career. And I used to tell the team, hey, this is what we do. Don't get bored if we're getting better. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You may not like the fact that we do the same drills every day for 20 minutes, but Amin, when's the last time you traveled? Coach, I haven't traveled this year. Yeah, no fooling. That's why we do this footwork stuff.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So there's some stuff that's non-negotiable, and there's some stuff that I go, hey, how do you guys feel about this?
Yeah.
How do you want to do this? I think you do that with your staff, and you give them ownership.
Definitely. And how do you think JJ is going to do in LA?
TBA. TBA, to be determined, or TBD, I guess. Right?
I like that. TBA, to be determined.
Because I think he's very bright.
Mm-hmm.
He better learn how to use a clipboard, because I watched that podcast and the X's are not offense. and there's a certain, I'm telling you, I don't know why, because he played for Coach K, but every player in the world knows that the O's are the offense.
Yep.
And the X
is defense. Yep.
And I guarantee you, if you got, now I'm sure he doesn't know me from hole in the wall, and I've never met him. I guarantee you watch a timeout next year and you can see the board. I bet the O's are offense.
Yeah, definitely.
But he's got to learn that, and he's even got to practice that, Charlotte.
Yeah.
And as you know, Amin and Charlotte, you read that thread, like coach the summer league team.
Yep.
Get as many reps as you can, even in summer league, and call some timeouts and practice your timeouts. Because it gets back to what we said earlier about making pressure decisions in the non-pressure time of the offseason.
Cool. Well, Coach, I got one last question before we go. Both of your sons are coaches. James is as you mentioned, with the G League affiliate for the Wizards, and Matt's up at Harvard. As a coach, how does it feel to see your sons go in your footsteps and take the same journey that the highs and you also know the lows of?
Yeah. And they were young kids when I got fired from New Mexico, so they lived it, In fact, when I got fired, Matt was so young. When my wife told him, he started crying. He thought his dad was on fire.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, no, I know. And now he's 29. He's a rock star. Played for Tommy Amaker, worked at Villanova for Jay Wright, and he's on his way. And James is a grinder. He's been with USA Basketball, Van Gundy, 3 G League teams. Now he's with the Wizards. I love what I've done. I wish Matt had taken that Harvard degree and gone to Wall Street. But he has friends that he went to school with and teammates that went to Wall Street, and they're miserable.
Yeah.
Right.
And so both of those guys saw that their father had a job that he truly loved. It was never work to me, whether it's broadcasting or coaching. And I think that it makes me feel good. It also makes me feel good. They're not third basers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I might have put them on first base because of my name. Fraschilla is unusual. And because maybe they've been around people who, they've seen me and my players and coaches I know. So I didn't put them on third base. They're grinding. And they're both going to be really good coaches. But I think it's really kind of fun. But here's the crazy thing. James, they're 2 different people. James never calls me. Okay. We text. He never calls me. And Matt calls me every day.
Wow.
And says, hey, did you see that? Did you see that inbounds plays the Pacers ran last night?
Wow.
Love it. Oh my gosh.
And that's only because they're 2 different people. They're both really good, but they're different. And that's how kids are. You can't make them. They're not cookie cutters. Can't do it.
Amen.
Amazing.
Thanks a lot, Coach Fraschilla, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
All right, JJ. I hope you were listening. That's it for Oddball. We will be back tomorrow with a special guest. And thank you, as always, for watching.